Relax. You gotta just chill out, man.
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, you just got to chill out, man. Welcome to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you Tuesday night, just after 9 p.m., pretty darn close to on time. Where else would you rather be as a 3-0 Pittsburgh Steelers fan? And with me as always, except when he's not, is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how's it going tonight?
Bear with me. Woo! The Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-0. They are the styling, profiling, limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing sons of a gun.
All right, Steelers fans, you can now turn your volume back up if you had to do it there. That was great, Rich. It's nice.
I mean, you got to be excited. It's exciting.
You got to breathe it twice.
I know.
To be on the post-game show. You got that honor by correctly picking the score.
Of 20-10.
Yes.
Steelers.
Yes. Now,
Bam.
I'm sure other people have guessed.
Y'all heard it here last week.
Yeah. I'm sure other people have picked the scores here. I know some did last year or whatnot. But is that the first time that you called it exactly right? It is this year. We know that, right? So.
Yeah, I've done it before, but one time it was I changed my score from here to the article.
Yep. And which one was right, here or the article?
I think it was the article.
Yeah.
That was right. But no, I've been doing better at trying to make sure I go with something and stick with it. It was nice to do that. So
I'm the same way when it comes to our over-under game because I have a score. And what's crazy is this. I've been managing to be the closest one with the scores on our over-under for 3 weeks. Yet I'm in last place with actually picking the over-unders. I try to do things that will line up with the scores that I pick. But, I'm not always close to the score. So far, every week, Jeff and Brian have both taken the over for the points. Every week, I've taken the under. They've been wrong. I've been right every time. But yet, I can't get the other things right that lead up to that. But you know what? I don't care about getting those right nearly as much as the Pittsburgh Steelers getting a win. There's nothing more about than I would love to say about the Pittsburgh Steelers getting a win more than this.
I feel good. I feel so good at dancing.
But that's what the Steelers can't do. You can't get complacent. You can't get comfortable at this point of the season. And we're going to dive into a big reason why here in a little bit as we go. But before we do that, we've already got a super chat. We've got some $5 dingo dollars.
Got us some dingo dollars. Thank you, Marky D.
Marky D and Steelers Nation Australia. And this is what he said here. He says, "I'd rather be in the."
Read it with the accent.
I'd rather be in. I can't do it. Right. That's the only thing I can do in an Australian accent.
Right.
He said, "I'd rather be in the Playboy Mansion with beds and water slides. However, I guess Steelers 3-0 will do."
Okay, that was not awful. That was not awful. You got a little bit there.
Well, I had to get the right mentality. I couldn't just go. I had to bring in the right first. Okay, see, here's the thing. AFL 67 says 3-0 with Colts on tap. I smell 4-0. Hold the phone. Hold the phone. I would love nothing more than to spell 4-0. But Rich is there holding his phone.
I'm holding my phone.
Hold the phone. But you just got to hold on. You gotta back it up because it's just not ready yet. I love what Coach Tallman was saying today. I really did with some of the stuff. This Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Oh my goodness. Defense. They are now the number one scoring defense and the number one yardage defense in the NFL right now. getting into week 3, I start getting to where that's okay to talk about. Definitely going into week 2, you're talking about a 1-game sample. What I like to do is the more games you get, the less an outlier affects everything. So as the season goes on, that outlier game where you did really great or really terrible just gets lessened and you get a better picture of everything. So the Steelers, man, 3 games, no more than 10 points. What do you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers keeping the opponent off the scoreboard so far this year, Rich?
Okay, I'm going to do it by I'm going to answer that by hopping on something else. Okay, I love to catch, and I do it in little snippets because that's all I can stand. But I caught a little bit of from Colin Cowturd today, and of course he loves to bash on the Steelers, and he's bashed on the Steelers. The offense not putting up enough touchdowns. Yeah, they beat Kirk Cousins coming off an injury of last year, and Bo Nixon, his second ever start, and at a 60% at best Justin Herbert. And I had to be like, whoa. Slow down there a little bit, Cal Turd. Because this is what you're also forgetting. First of all, the Steelers could have more touchdowns, especially in this last game.
Yes.
Because Najee just runs the ball up and gets down on the on the 1-yard line so the Steelers can line up in victory formation, okay? But then let's stop for a second and remember this, especially this past weekend, okay? You can talk, the talking heads out there nationally can talk all they want. Well, the Steelers, they were playing the Chargers and Herbert was injured and ended up, he wasn't 100% and ends up getting knocked out of the game, blah, 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 blah. You know what he forgot to mention?
Oh,
there was no talk of the
huge running attack.
Correct. That the Chargers come into the game as the NFL's leading rushing team, averaging nearly 200 yards per game.
We're the second leading rushing team with the leading rusher.
Yes.
Individual.
Okay,
Yes.
right.
Okay.
So, but they were averaging nearly 200 yards over their first 2 games, and the Steelers held them to 61 yards. Do you think the Chargers were going into that game planning on having Justin Herbert chuck the ball all around the stadium?
No, well, they haven't all
No.
season. Look at this. Look at this. Week 1, Justin Herbert, 17 of 26, 144 yards and a touchdown. Week 2, Justin Herbert, 14 of 20, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. Week 3, didn't complete the game, but he was 12 of 18 for 125 yards and a touchdown. It's not like Justin Herbert didn't do the same kind of stuff that Justin Herbert had been doing the 2 weeks before. The thing was, Justin Herbert was leading on a running game that the Steelers shut down.
Right.
That's the difference.
That's the difference.
So then they're like, well, they'd have to call on Justin Herbert, and they couldn't. They're the ones who made the decision to put him out there in that state, which probably wasn't the best decision for them to do.
Well, they called on him then to win the game. The problem is you drop him back, you just make him a sitting duck.
Yeah.
And the Steelers are going to take advantage of that. And they did.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And what I was originally saying, and I never actually got to my point, was about what Coach Tomlin said today. You have that phenomenal defense. And when he talks about the defense, about the game from this past week, what does he point out? Great defenses communicate well. We've still got some stuff to clean up with that. Didn't even mention giving up a touchdown. But what did he mention? Their longest run of the game, we only had 10 players on the field. We can't have those kind of things. So as good as what they're doing, Coach Tomlin still finds a way to talk about what they still need to improve. That's what I want to hear going into week 4 of the season. Even though they are the best defense in the NFL right now, that's what you still want to look at. Hey, we can be happy with being the best defense after 3 weeks, or we can make sure we're still the best defense after 18 weeks.
There you go.
And that's what I'm talking about. So it's
Yeah,
And you know what? I got to bring this one up.
Okay.
I just thought this was funny, and I lost it. I got to see if I can find it.
while you do it, let me say this, because I can
go
hear Coach Tomlin right now telling his team, especially the defense, hey, guys, you're the top ranked defense after week 3. Guess how many awards they give out for that? None.
Yeah.
Big whoop. It only means something if we can keep it going.
Yeah. Or Coach Tomlin, I'm sure chances are he's not going to acknowledge it because he's going to say it's a 3-game sample, which I agree. This is the first one you can start to put a little, you can start to pay attention to it. I mean, I mentioned it going into that because it was 2 games, just because it was interesting. It just told you the trend of the team right then. Now, after 3 games, you're starting to say these things can show us a little bit. To me, where I really started looking at the ranks is after 4 weeks of the season. Give me what would have typically been a quarter of the season when it was 16 games. Now, I still look at it as a quarter of the season, but one of the quarters has an extra game. But what I wanted to bring up was John S. said, if the Steelers go 7-7, they finish 10-7. Hashtag math. So,
love the hashtag.
Yeah. That
go
even
500.
looking at what they do from now, where they've put themselves in a very good position. You can't put yourself in any better position than what the Steelers are right now. Like a title of our show last week, the Steelers can't be any. Last week, they couldn't be any better than 2-0. This week they can't be any better than 3-0. This week they played better, but they still have to keep moving. And the offense knows this. Coach Tomlin hit that right off the bat. Man, we started slow again. 2 3-and-outs to start the game, not good enough. Okay, they are not comfortable. They're not complacent, and this team I don't know how to predict stuff with this team because they just feel different. It feels like a different team. I feel like this is the first time the Steelers have had a legit offensive coordinator since the 2017 season. It just feels different. And you have it without the comfort of a long-time starting quarterback like we had in 2017.
Yes.
So that's why it's different. Now, am I expecting Justin Fields to continue to tear it up week after week? No, I'm not. We'll see how that goes. Coach Tomlin still got to ask you what you think of this. What do you think of Coach Tomlin saying, hey, I'm not naming a starter of one over the other between Fields and Wilson because we don't have them both right now. There's no reason to have to address that issue until that issue needs addressed.
If they are both full participants in practice all week, then we can talk about it at the end of the week.
Yeah, and they're not going to be because Coach Tomlin already announced that Wilson is scheduled to be limited tomorrow, Wednesday.
Right.
That's what he's scheduled to do. So that's some good stuff of what he said about the notion of not making a call or a decision. They haven't touched the depth chart. And Coach, and he was even asked, when is Russ going to be to the point where you have to make it? He's like, I don't know, but I'll know when he's there, and I will be very transparent with you all when that decision has to be made. But, I mean, I hate to say it, knock on wood, so many things could change by the time Russell Wilson's ready to go. We see how things have changed so much in the NFL. My goodness, players are, constant reports of players getting injured, including players in the Steelers. Corey Trice went on IR today, unfortunately. That's the second time in 2 seasons. This doesn't need to be season ending. I mean, he can be one of the 8 that they use that's to return, but they don't have to designate it now. They only have to designate it when he comes back. It's not like what they had to do with Jeremiah Moon and Dylan Cook at the beginning of the season, that they had to designate him or not. So he could come back as early as week 8, but we'll see. It's a hamstring injury that's going to be enough to keep him out. James Pierre landed on the 53-man roster because of that. Also, the Steelers signed a tackle that had spent a lot of crazy stuff with this guy. Very interesting bio of Calvin Anderson, I do believe, is the tackle that they've brought in to kind of back things up. I mean, my goodness, he caught malaria in Nigeria and missed a lot of last season, I think. He's a very interesting person. Seems to be a very intelligent person. Seriously, put whatever stock in Wikipedia that you want. Go look him up on Wikipedia and see what it says. It's kind of very interesting.
If you're going to do it, if you're going to do a show on the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to say it like you live in Pittsburgh.
Wikipedia.
No, Wikipedia.
Wikipedia. That's what it is.
Wikipedia.
I put the R in the wrong spot.
Yes, you did.
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia.
Okay? So that's some of the news behind the Steelers. Alex Highsmith not on IR. Now, could they put him on here by the end of the week? They could. But the reports are from Jerry Dulac, good old Jer Bear, that you're talking 2 to 3 games is what they're looking at. Kind of like James Daniels was with his groin last year. But Rich, I like the 3-man rotation. But we had even kind of talked about, and probably feel pretty good about it now, what if one, are the Steelers still okay as long as they've got 2 out of their 3 outside linebackers?
Yes, they are, and they're going to figure out how to.
The best defensive player in the world is one of them. But yeah.
Well, yeah, they're going to be just fine, as was shown by Mr. Herbig in his play the other day. And I think the Steelers will be okay because they'll figure out how to fill that third gap well enough that will hold up until Alex Highsmith is healed up and back in the rotation.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, my goodness, I did my PFF article for SteelCurtainNetwork.com. You can check that out. That came out this afternoon. From week 3, the Steelers had the highest ranked offensive player and the highest ranked defensive player. Wait, I think it was offensive overall player. I'll have to double check that again. I don't know if I can do just all of offense. That's the problem. But he was at least the highest ranked offensive lineman in James Daniels and the highest ranked player on all in the defense in the NFL for week 3 in Nick Herbig. And the Steelers have 3 of the 13 defensive players that have a score of 90 or above for the season on defense in Herbig, Watt, who has the highest, and Cam Hayward. What was that?
All right, so Sherry was the first to put this out here. Said that will be Leal. Okay, so that's the Martin Leal. What do you think? Does he maybe see more time and be on that?
He did last
defensive
week.
end / outside linebacker rotation. Yeah. Who knows?
He did last week. He did in the second half last week because you can't have TJ and TJ Watt played like 90-some% snaps, but when you only have 44 defensive snaps, that's not so bad.
That's because by the second half, the offense was holding the ball nicely, and our defense was nice and rested.
Yeah. So you've got Leal. The Steelers did release a tight end off the practice squad, bring back an outside linebacker to the practice squad. There might be another elevation if needs be. You've got another week until Jeremiah Moon could start practicing. So there's some options there, but it's kind of nice when your fourth option was someone that was playing somewhere else. Now to only have 3, we'll see what they do. But I saw Leal as playing an outside linebacker role along with Herbig and Watt on the field where he was the guy standing up, not down in the stance, moving around, stuff like that. That was some pretty interesting stuff.
I thought, was that the play where all 3 of them were on the field and Herbig was out covering the tight end in the slot?
I don't remember. All I know is there was a replay, and the replay was from the view almost more like an all-22 view. It was from behind the quarterback. And I saw him moving around. That's one thing that sticks out in my mind.
I was trying to figure out because, the whole thing, everybody was moving around. Next thing you know, I see Herbig sliding out to cover the tight end in the slot, but I noticed that we were still upright with 2 guys. And at first I thought I was like, there is no way that is Cam Hayward standing upright and doing that. And it wasn't. So I think it was that probably was Leal. Things were happening quickly while I was trying to.
But, it's just... My thing is I was happy with so much in that game. Of course, both times the Steelers have given up a touchdown. It was to a receiver that kind of got wide open this season.
Kind of a busted coverage. Actually, what that was, what it looked like was JPJ took a little. He bit on something a little bit. But
he was supposed to be covering. He was not supposed to. He was supposed to have help over the top. He went very aggressive
yeah,
towards one of them. I wouldn't say that was his fault. I know PFF when they do their stats, because remember, PFF isn't just grades. When they say that every NFL team uses our information, they use their stats. Now, I don't like all their stats because, like, they don't give half sacks. They give them as full sacks. So their numbers are never the same of what's actually legit, because that's what they need to in order to calculate their grades. But what they do is they look at every player on every snap, so therefore they can give alignments, like how often does a wide receiver align in the slot, out wide, in line, all those things. That's really good. And they also, the NFL doesn't keep track of, touchdowns surrendered or drops or missed tackles and stuff like that. So that's places like PFF do those kind of things. And they credited Minkah Fitzpatrick with giving up that touchdown, but they didn't really have it affect his grade much, because it was just one of those things. Minkah talked about it and said they had the right play call for the defense we were in. That was going to be kind of a soft spot in that defense, and they found it. So it is what it is. But it's just feels good about this game because the offense seemed more than adequate. Now, are we satisfied with where the offense is right now, Rich?
no. But here's what I'd like to say. I'm happier with where the offense was after Game 3 than I was with where the offense was after Game 1.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're moving in the right direction.
That's right. They are trending. I like to say they're trending in the right direction.
Yes.
Trending in the right direction. So let's keep them trending in the right direction, and that's fine.
But don't be complacent that you did a good job this week. It was still just 20 points, although in our mind we got to think it was 27. You've got to keep the pedal down. Keep the pedal down, offense and defense. Keep the pedal down. All right, Rich, we're going to go ahead and take our break. And when we come back, I'm going to do kind of a little bit of a stat geek flashback of giving you some numbers of why it's so important for the Steelers to keep the pedal down this week going into Indianapolis. So make sure we've got a message from our sponsor, DraftKings, coming up. So if you're with us here on Facebook, YouTube, X, we're not going anywhere. If you're with us here on the audio, stick around. We'll be right back after these messages.
Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry, relax. Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry, relax.
Relax, don't worry, but don't relax too much. Keep the pedal down. I think I relaxed a little bit too much because it took me like 4 tries trying to hit the button to make the music go there. But we Steelers fans, relax. Steelers, don't relax. Here's why. Rich, I didn't compare all of them like I have in years past because I knew the answer was this one. But if you recall me speaking about it in the past, about under head coach Mike Tomlin, week 4 has kind of been the Achilles heel of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, we've kind of talked before, and it's not always just that they're 3-0 and then could go to 3-1. There's been times where it's like, oh, hey, they're 2-1. It's almost like that trap game gets them on week 4. It's like, hey, the Steelers should go in. They should win this game. They're 2-1, and they should be 3-1 when they're done. Or they're 1-2. Hey, this is their chance. They're going to even it up, and they tend to at times drop a game right here where they shouldn't.
Yeah, and like last year, they were sitting at 2-1. They were going into Houston. I think they were favored. I have it here. I could tell you. Were they favored in that game? They were favored in that game, and they didn't just lose. They got trounced when you look at the final score. Now, things changed when Kenny Big got hurt, blah, blah, blah. They were still there. And the game, it got over. It was out of reach late, but there was a point in the second half where it seemed like the Steelers could have been right there. but they were 3-point favorites and they lost 30-6. That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Because under head coach Mike Tomlin, the Pittsburgh Steelers have actually had 2 times they've had a bye in week 4 where they did not play. So they've had 15 games under Coach Tomlin in week 4, and the Steelers are 5-10. 5-10 in week 4. Now, from a coach that's never had a losing season, 5-10 goes to show how much of an outlier week 4 is. The Pittsburgh Steelers have lost their last 3 week 4 matchups. They lost last year in Houston 30-6. They lost home to the Jets the year before when they were favored. They lost 24-20, and they lost in 2021 in Green Bay. They were not favored in that game, but they lost by 10 points, 27-17, which means the last time the Steelers won in week 4, actually it wasn't in 2020, because remember that game got moved to week 7. So that one there was no week 4 game for 2020 when they had the 11-0 start. You had to go back to 2019 when the 0-3 Steelers finally got their first win against who are now the hapless Cincinnati Bengals. So remember that wasn't a team that was like, oh, we're doing well. This was we're 0-3. We got to get something started. The last time they won in week 4.
Can I say though what, especially as we look at in the more recent, because I always like to compare things. They're easier to compare in the more recent. Mm-hmm. Can I tell you what just feels different?
Yeah.
For some reason this year, the Steelers feel more like a team than 2 separate units.
That is a really good point of when you said 2 separate units. I thought when you said they feel like a team, I'm like, yeah, I get that. Oh, yeah. This is not the defense and the offense seem to be disconnected.
Correct.
They really did of how much the defense was having to bail out the offense. And I'll be honest with you, I think a lot of that had to do with the OC, but that's just me. So, yeah. It's a really good point. That is a really, really good point. But, Rich, here's the other thing. There's more to this week 4 thing than what I've shared so far. Okay. So the Steelers are 5-10 in week 4 under Coach Tomlin. Every time they won a game, they covered. But of those 10 losses, they were favored to win 7 of them. That's part of the reason why it really stings there. That stings out more.
The true trap game. It's the true trap game.
Yeah. I mean, my goodness, I was there in 2014 when they were 7.5-point favorites and lost to Tampa. They were 3-point favorites in 2008. Oh no, actually no. In 2008 they won. They were 6-point favorites and they won. Some of these other ones they were 5-point favorites in 2007, Coach Tomlin's first year, and then lost in Arizona. So they were 3.5-point favorites over the Jets and lost. So, those kind of things. But there's still even more to it, a little bit more, Rich. You ready for this?
Okay.
Under head coach Mike Tomlin, the Pittsburgh Steelers have never gone 2-0 in weeks 3 and 4. Every time they've won in week 4, it's because they were following up a loss. Every time they've won in week 3, they've lost in week 4.
Put an asterisk on that, though.
Remember, 2020, there was no week 4 game. And in 2012, there was no week 4 game, but they lost in week 3 anyway, so it didn't matter.
Right. Because, right. You got to you can't dismiss that without bringing those little
you got to remember that.
Up.
Yes, but they have not gone 2-0 in weeks 3 and week 4. It just seems like it's that very end of the first quarter of the season, if you're doing well, you have a tendency to maybe get a little bit complacent. I feel that some of those losses with the Steelers was almost what that was. I mean, think of how slow the Steelers started last year in Houston in week 4. It just didn't even seem like they were the same team of what they were the previous 2 weeks. So it's one of those things that they haven't put together a win in week 3 and a win in week 4. Do you know how far back you got to go? You've got to go all the way back to the phenomenal rookie season of Ben Roethlisberger. After they lost in week 2, and then they didn't lose again the rest of the regular season. That's it. So that is something to remember. But you're right. This team feels different. This team doesn't seem to be the same thing. They seem like I just don't know what it is about it. Now, could all that change this Sunday in Indy? Yeah. I'm not trying to discourage Steelers fans. I'm just saying that, especially, I mean, come on. Didn't you feel you're the most confident about the Pittsburgh Steelers after this win of any 3 they've had so far?
Oh, yeah. I felt much better about this game. And right after this game, I'm going to bring it up here because I give Marky D some credit. I got to thinking the same thing, Marky D, that if the Steelers would win this week, they'd get the win on this week 4, they would be 4-0 to start the season with 3 of those games being on the road.
Yeah.
Just think about what that would be and what that would mean.
Yeah.
It's huge. And if Coach Tomlin were to say anything about this going in, that's what he'd say. Guys, we could start to put our stamp on this season by starting 4-0, going undefeated in that first quarter of the season when they sent us out on the road for 3 of those 4 games.
Yeah. 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 That's you're exactly right. Yeah, Marky D was asking about, he's like, so in 2020 they had a bye week 4. Yeah. Well, they were supposed to be in week 7.
Week 7. Yeah.
That's when then Tennessee kept flubbing up their COVID protocols, and that game got moved. And the Steelers got the bye week thrust on them on Friday after having a week of Friday morning. And I think they sent them home after they had already had most of their week of practice. So they didn't actually get their week off that they would have during the bye week. So, but that's neither here nor there. That was in 2020.
That's history.
Yeah. So that's the thing. The Steelers need to buck history here, and I think that they can do it. I really think I think they really think they can. Now, that's with that. Do we need to talk any more about this past week's game specifically? Because we were on the post game show together, so we usually don't talk until we get to our show. But we didn't have a choice this week.
I will save the. I will say the one thing that I saved that I didn't talk about in the post-game show because I was saving it for here because this is where I brought it up last week. This was the first game where I felt the Steelers started to bully their opponent on both sides of the football.
Yes.
It took well into the second half before I was comfortable saying that the offense was bullying them around, but when you have a 10-point lead and you take the ball with just under 5 minutes to play and the opponent never touches it again, that was a bullying statement by the Steelers offense.
How much time did you say?
It was just under 5, wasn't it?
Just under 5. Yeah. Jeff keeps saying 6. I'm like, you know what? It was 4 minutes and 59 seconds.
Yep, 4:59.
If it would have been 2 more seconds, you could have done the Han Solo rounding method and said 6 minutes. But
Yes.
you did, but not in this case because it was just under 5. But hey, you know what? I got to give it to Jeff because he didn't get to watch the game live for the first time in a decade.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Hey, hold on a minute. I got a quick. Oh man, how in the world was I forgetting this?
What's that?
Are we able to put a photograph up on our?
You would have to have it open in a different tab on your computer,
hold on.
and then you can do under. Sorry, Breaking down the fourth wall, as Brian Anthony would say, under the present button at the bottom. I think you have the authority to do that.
All right, so hold on. I would
So
have to
one
open
thing,
it up.
while you're looking at that, I want to say something because Wes asked a question. He said, "Is there any update on Najee's shoulder?" I actually think it was his elbow, is what I was told, because he was in a sling. And the update was nothing of concern for Najee. When Coach Tomlin was asked about it today, he's like, he is full go, because people were asking about if he's comfortable with the practice squad running backs. He's like, so therefore, I don't think I need to answer the second part of that question. Yeah, that he's good to go. So that's good. So also there was a question. The last time a defense had negative yards and a half, that was I actually have this saved as a photograph, where since 2000 that has happened 7 times where a team has been held to negative yards in a half, with the Steelers being at -5. That has them ranked 5th. The Steelers were also ranked 3rd because in 2001 they held the Detroit Lions to -7 yards in the second half as well. The record over the last 24 seasons, meaning back to 2000, was in 2020, the Buffalo Bills did it to the New York Jets in week 18. They held them to -16 yards. That's the most. But you're talking about a half of football of a team having negative yardage since 2000. It's happened 7 times. 7. Think about that.
And they said
This past week, there were 32 halves of football in 1 week. We're talking 23 plus seasons where it's only happened 7 times. So,
and that's crazy.
Were you able to figure it out there, Rich? What you're trying
I don't know what I have to. I have it open in a program. Am I able to do that or not?
You should be able
So
to.
then, all right, hold on. Let's see.
You keep working on it while I guess I'll have to just keep talking.
I mean, let's see.
Because yeah. So we have the yardage. One thing that was interesting, and it's funny, because if you listen to any other podcast on the Fans First Sports Network, hey, there it is.
There it is.
If you're watching live, sorry for those of you that are on audio form, you'll have to go check out Jeff Hartman's Twitter account, where he shared a picture of us from our golf outing on Friday. I'm sure Jeff and I will talk about that a little bit more in the preview. But what's really funny, the first thing my wife said about this picture is, "Wow, it looks like 3 family members and another dude standing on the
That's
side."
exactly what I thought. Actually, I thought
between Jeff and I and you, Kyle and
I thought that when we were taking I thought that while we were taking the picture, but I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So
and that's hashtag Pay Kyle there, along with Rich and I.
wait a minute, not just hashtag Pay Kyle, hashtag Pay Kyle the longest drive winner.
That's right. He won the longest drive. Now, what I think is interesting is Kyle won the longest drive. People are like, well, what about Jeff? Jeff had a drive because Kyle had such a good shot. Jeff could go out there and just really try to wail on it to only try to make it better. And he actually hit it slightly farther because of where he hit it. He got more of a roll, but where he hit it was not in the fairway. But he didn't have to hit it in the fairway because he was just trying to hit it farther than Kyle, which took an awful lot. So it was pretty cool. So
it was a fun day that was had by all. So
yeah,
there you go.
It's funny because on Twitter, Afton had said this. She says, "I just said it's proof Dave is bigger." So Jeff and I maybe on the preview we'll have to tell another little story from that outing. That's more of a good story for Jeff. So, but yeah, that was our Steel Curtain Network team. That was the first time you and Kyle met Jeff in person. That's the first time Jeff ever met someone from Steel Curtain Network in person, other than Brian and myself. So,
and I told him that's just downright sad.
Yeah,
we're going to have to work on that, Jeff.
Well, and I also what I said to Jeff is, hey, did I do okay covering for you while you were gone? He's like, thank you so much. His wife thanked me that he was able to go do that, and I'm like, you know what that means? That means Jeff has no excuse when it comes to going to a game. Now, I don't think that Jeff and I could go to the same game, but Jeff should be able to go to a game. But he'll have to come up with a different excuse, which is probably going to be 5 kids. otherwise. So, but yeah,
Not
that
going to fly.
That was just a fun weekend, a good Steelers weekend. I mean, my goodness, I spent 5 hours with Jeff in the car on Friday between driving there and coming back. Had a whole lot of fun. So, and like I said, we'll have another story that Jeff and I'll make sure we share on the preview.
Got to throw this one up here because this was the other thing I was actually going to bring up and say.
Okay.
And so I'm going to bring it up because Wes brings it up and says, man, this is the first season in a long time. I'm also not worried about the secondary being a liability.
Yes.
You know, not just that, Wes, but that I think has allowed the Steelers, that's allowing their pass rush to even get after it more because they're not having to worry about trying to cover extra gaps in that secondary. Those guys have, like, the scheme fits the players. The players are executing the scheme. For the most part, communication has been good, at least a lot better than it's been the past few years, at least. And there we go. So,
Well, here was funny. Coach Tomlin on the press conference today. This was when I couldn't read my writing, and I remember what it was after it was over. I'm like, oh man, I wanted to tell this story. He was asked about the cornerbacks helping out in run supports. And Coach Tom was like, yeah, that's something that is evolving with our game, but you can't do too much with these guys in that regard because one's young and one's little. So he called Dante Jackson little in the press conference. Didn't call him by name, but he said one's young, one's little. So that's just
I don't know, John. You know, he might argue and say that he's young.
Yeah. So yeah. So the one thing I was starting to say was, if you listen to other podcasts on Fans for Sports Network, one of the ones I do is Breakfast with Ben's. Mark Madden's with him for Madden Mondays. Make sure you check that out. You can find that, through FSN or anywhere you get podcasts. And of course, Mark Madden, who is kind of like taking on the persona of a Steelers hater, giving them kudos a lot this week. But what does he have to say about the defense? The defense has a problem. They're not forcing enough turnovers. Now, they have 5 through 3 games. So one game without getting any is not forcing enough. I think that is a little bit of a bold, what have you done for me lately statement? Because you're going to have games where you don't get takeaways.
And he would also need to be reminded of this, okay? Is the defense's goal to create turnovers or not give up points? I'll take the not give up points part over the turnovers anytime.
Yeah. Well, and he's saying this offense needs as much help as it can get. They should, if they can get some short fields. But he's still talking about the offense that we've kind of seen the last 2 years. They had to have that help and still would squander it. Just like I go back to week 3 of 2019 after Ben was injured and the defense kept giving the Steelers the ball in field goal range, and they kept, not only were they just settling for field goals, they weren't even getting a first down.
Right.
Kicking a field goal. So
I look at it
to
this
me,
way.
that's not a concern yet. But,
Correct.
1 is a thing, 2 is a pattern. If the Steelers don't have any takeaways this week, I could see where someone could then start to mention that more of a concern. I just thought I wanted to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, what I'd like to see is that talking point. I don't want to say that it should be dismissed because it shouldn't be 100% dismissed as of yet. But that talking point has more to do with the Steelers over the past 2 years, and a lot has changed since then.
Yeah.
So that's one that I say, okay, you can get away with that talking point still a little bit now, but if that's the case, Mark Madden better be prepared to stick that talking point in his back pocket because the time could be coming very soon.
People would rather you say something other than back pocket.
This is a family show.
I know this is the family show. I thought that's where you're going, or maybe somewhere close to his back pocket. That's
Exactly. Yes. just that will need to be put away because at some point the realization will have to kick in that we're really talking about 2 very different teams.
Yeah. Yes. So, and I mean, the Steelers, they were close this game. Patrick Queen did not come away with a pick that he could have had. That would have been nice.
On a
But,
play that also could have been the third sack. Could have been a third sack for Nick Herbig.
yep. And, and honestly, that was the only Steelers pass defense the whole game. Which is interesting, but still, I'm not going to complain with what the defense was able to do.
No.
What was the emphasis this week?
Stop the
Stop
run.
the friggin' run. I mean, you even saw it from their inactive list. They had an extra defensive lineman active and one less cornerback. So pretty interesting with what they decided to. I mean, and the other defensive back that they had that was active who hadn't been was Jalen Elliott, who was more of a special teams guy and would have been more of a run stopping secondary guy even than would have been more of a coverage guy from what I've seen or believe he is. I might be way off there. You can tell me if I am, but just from what I remember from the preseason. So to me, when you executed your game plan well, that's the thing. You have to execute your game plan well, and your game plan has to be one that can achieve victory. So some people don't like it when the Steelers, they sold out to stop the run and got torched in the pass. Well, guess what? That meant your game plan wasn't one that you might have executed what you're planning on, but it wasn't the right plan to achieve victory. It's kind of all come together so far through 3 games.
Yeah, and really the key to this one for the Steelers was defensively. That was a fine. I have no issue with the game plan. The worry is then would the Steelers let it start to get out of hand a little bit for them, but they did not. The defense, even though the Steelers were down early, the defense did not ever let the Steelers were never out of striking distance, and because of that plan could stay. And then once the Steelers grabbed the lead, it kind of I want to say dictated, because now it was like in the second half, the Steelers tie it up to start the second half. And then at that point in time, you saw the Chargers say, we're going to have to score. And because they hadn't been able to run the ball, they were trying to throw the ball a little more here or there. And next thing you know, the Steelers are racking up sacks.
Yeah. Yes. It's funny. I'm kind of wanting to go back and check one thing on the highlights. Because another thing I was going to ask you, what did you think of the contributions of the other wide receivers?
I look, believe it or not, I thought it was a good week for the receiving core as a whole. Because if you go back and look, the ball got spread around pretty good. And honestly, the person who I think in some ways really helped the most with their 2 catches was Scotty Miller.
Yeah.
Those 2 catches by Scotty Miller were huge. Then you throw in the catches from Calvin Austin III, and it's just like, hey, this is getting the ball spread around, get the ball into the weapons' hands. I loved on the Calvin Austin touchdown. It was that entire play was schemed in a way to hit Austin on the run, and the defense that the Chargers were in gave him a little bit of space as he caught that ball, and once he was in space, forget it, it was done.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, so you had contributions from Calvin Austin. Van Jefferson was out for most of the game injured. So, but even honestly, it's not like he didn't make a difference. He came back in at the very end after he could see again and did a really nice job blocking on those runs on that last drive. He actually did. For those of you that were curious, yes, you had your 2 main targets in Freiermuth and Pickens each. I had to watch something again. Each having a key drop that would have really helped. They were both on 3rd down, but I'm not going to nitpick about that. But what I wanted to go back and look at was one thing that was a little bit disappointing. No targets for Darnell Washington this week.
Yeah.
But
I know.
I wanted to watch it again to make sure. Did you notice on the Steelers' first touchdown? He comes up. He's not in a 3-point stance. He's standing, but towards the end of the line. When he stands, I'm like, that dude is so big. That dude is so tall. And he's standing there. And Tony Romo points him out even.
I know.
And I'm like, watch it. This is going to be his one target. And it's going to be in the end zone. But what did they do instead? He runs off the ball. Guys are trying to follow him like crazy because he's so big. And the one that isn't, he just goes out and smashes into. And there's nobody to touch Justin Fields running in because they all went to Washington thinking they were going to throw it to Washington for the easy score, and Fields could just run it in.
And
that
Fields
was actually, I mean, my goodness, he was a huge contributor on that touchdown just because of who he is and what the other teams now have to fear.
And that was an option run, okay?
Yeah.
So Justin Fields saw that they cleared out with Washington, saw that the defensive end was crashing hard in on I think it was Jalen Warren that was the back on that play, okay, which gave Field the exact read that he needed to do. This one should be mine, and he pulls the ball back out and goes in basically untouched.
So Freiermuth flares out. They've got two guys basically on Washington who's like, "Oh, you want to get physical? I'm just blocking you." So and it clears it out. I'm sitting here watching it here on my phone over and over again. And yeah, Washington just goes and pushes the guy into the end zone, and there's no one around. So they didn't target him, but his presence in the passing game made a huge difference right there. So that's just something else I wanted to point out.
See, he also had a pass block that I thought was great at one point. Yeah. He chopped the guy's arms and then basically took the guy to knocked the guy to the ground and then just sat on top of him.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm just like, he is a bad man. If they could slowly evolve him into the passing game a little more, I don't need him to become, a major target in there. But if just the threat of him being more of a target in there, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and that does go a long way. Now, remember, we're feeling pretty good right now from this game. I just want this feeling to continue. But we also have to realize how many times have we had this and been like, oh, we just haven't and it's let us down, So I got to bring up something because I just got to point it out. This is from Steeler Chick 46. Said, love last night the O-lineman for the Commanders getting a TD. You mean former Pittsburgh Steelers Trenton Scott? Remember, This was the same guy that the Steelers brought in 2022. Wasn't he the one that was, or am I thinking of the wrong one? Because he was with the Chargers for 2 years and got traded to the Panthers and something like that that they brought in. I was thinking he was starting a lot of games. He only started one game, but he played 8 games with the Steelers. I'm also getting him confused with the other guy that they brought in when the Castro got hurt. That was a different guy. But no, Trenton Scott, he played in 2022 with the Steelers. So, yes, he is a former Pittsburgh Steeler that got that one reception for 1 yard and a touchdown for his career. That's pretty nice. I got to here take this down. Rich, we've got to get going to this week's game.
Yep.
We've talked about they have to keep the pedal down, and we've talked about it, what the Steelers need to do. Is there anything we want to address specifically about this matchup, or other than the Steelers just need to keep working and starting fast, not getting caught up, not just having one of those things aren't working right for us today kind of games?
Yeah, I put this defensively. The Steelers, I think, just need to do the types of things they've been doing. I hope that, and this is what let's not overthink it. Let's not over scheme it defensively. Let's play solid defense, and honestly, Anthony Richardson will make a mistake or two. You just have to be patient and take advantage of it when he does.
Yeah. And honestly, with the Steelers being 3-0 and the Colts are now 1-2, they just won last week. They beat the Bears. Coach Tomlin said they had problems stopping the run, but this past week they were, you could see what they were trying to do to fix the issues. This Colts team, they really don't have anything to lose. They just got to go out and realize this is the Steelers. This is at home. We've got to take chances. They're kind of a little bit of a desperate team needing to get back to 500. So sometimes desperate teams can be a little bit scary, but the Steelers are favorites going into this one. Rich, let's roll to it. Let's get ready to finish this up with our scores. What do you have for your score for this Sunday at 1 p.m. when God intended NFL football to be played, where the Steelers travel to Indianapolis to take on the Colts? What's your final score for this one? Don't put yours in the live chat yet. Wait until I put it out, put the words out there. All right, go ahead.
I'm going to go with the score of Steelers 24, Colts 14.
All right, so you've got 24-14. I don't know where that is with the over-under yet. I don't look at those things a little bit more until later in the week. I got you. I see where you are. Now, remember, when you put these in there, some people already started to put them in. Nope, doesn't work. Not until I put the words out there.
Yeah.
If you don't put any team down, we assume you mean Steelers. If you just put a number, and guess what? No. For those of you on Facebook, you might not see that I put it out there, but I did. I got an error for putting that on my end, so it's there in case you didn't see that. We've
I'm
got
not
Thomas
surprised.
Riley.
Facebook's done a couple weird things like that today.
Yeah,
so.
at least we're coming through this time. Remember, we had shows that wouldn't even that
Yeah.
Facebook wouldn't even have out there. So at least we think that got fixed. That wasn't on our end. That was on their end. Thomas Riley, Steelers 24, Colts 13. Very close to your score, Rich.
Yep.
Afton Forward says 16-12 Steelers. Wes has 31-13 Pittsburgh. Steel Dog 88's got 24-13 Steelers. That's a common score right now. Christopher 11 has 31-11 Fields of Dreams. Steelers Pittsburgh says 23-10. Eric Weidman. I'm going Weidman. Pitt 27, Indy 3. Steelers Chick 46 says Steelers 17, Indy 10. Kathy Ford has 23-15. That would be Steelers. Outside Steeler fan says good guys 17-14. He's given a game winner to Boz. I don't want it to be that close, but hey, a win's a win, especially when you're on the road. Brian Brown says 28-3 Steelers. Woo! Yeah. Youngin Woodburning has 27-13 Steelers. Valley Ford, 27-15 Steelers. Reginald Rivers, 24-13 Steelers. Do Dirty says 31-10 Steelers. Brian Morrow probably is Steelers 27-10. Gavin Anthony has 28-6 Steelers. Matthew Bunk says 24-7 Steelers. John Walter has 27-17. He says second horse taming. That's right. No, first you got the Broncos, then you got the Colts. I got you. David Poe has 27-16 Steelers. Is it just weird we have more scores this week than we've had in a long time?
It's been a while since I've seen this spinning. This is good.
Yep. Sherry Richards has 27-16 Steelers. Thomas Eads has 27-10 Steelers. Did I say Sherry's right? I think I did. 27-16.
Yes, you did.
AFL 67 says Steelers 23-7. Ruben Stone says we'll be at the game. So 27-13, good guys. I was wondering if there'll be, how Steelers Nation will be represented at Indy. I don't think it's going to be like Atlanta, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's like Denver. We'll just have to see. We got Russ Obenstein. I think it's Obenstein. Russ has told me, and I can never remember Russ. I'm sorry. He says Steelers 35-13. I'd be happy with that one. Although all you guys throwing out more than 10 points. Steelers haven't given up more than 10 points this year. I gotta think it's interesting. Mr. Woodside says Steelers 23-20 in OT. Okay, Keith Muir says Steelers 24-9. Mark Collins says Steelers 27-13. George Medina, almost wanted to give him a nickname there. 31-18 Steelers, and has a nice day with George Pickens. Rich King says 27-10 Steelers. Robert Road, 23-0 Steelers. Wes gets $2 into that tip jar saying, hit that like button. Subscribe. Great show, guys. Yes, that's all the scores that I see right now. So with that, I will say, make sure you're checking out all of our podcasts. We've got the same lineup of what you all were typically used to seeing or hearing coming up for the rest of the week. We got Dale Watson Jr. says Steelers 24-10. Also, make sure you're checking out SteelCurdNetwork.com. We had KT's breakdown, his 3 and outs today. Don't miss those. Like I said, I had the PFF scores. There'll be players mentioned tomorrow. Rich should have another Worthless 2 cents coming out this week. And all of our great content there at Steel Curd Network. Here's another one. We got Jamie Carlo saying 27-13 good guys. Although that's Ruben saying what he thinks the ratio will be. He says it'll be 55-45 when it comes to Colts Steelers. So there we go.
Okay.
Is that Mark Collins with another one? Says going to say 27-12. I think he might have had another one, but there we go. Rich, what do you want to say here to close us out tonight?
All right, closing us out, and I'm going to start my closeout differently because time is becoming short. I still have Dallas Cowboy tickets. Section 539. I have 2 of them. I am selling them now to anybody that would like that would reach out to Dave or I here for $300 a ticket. When most of the ones in my section, if you bought them through Ticketmaster, are going to cost you $480 plus.
I was going to say at least $450. I would assume.
Yeah, $480 plus.
Yeah.
So I'm going to compared to
that's a steal for that game. Just so everyone knows, that's a steal for that game.
It is a steal for that game, but that's what I'm down to offer out. I am not going to go any lower than that. I will go to the game myself before I go any lower than that. So,
all right, hate to interrupt you, Rich, but we have one last score. ST Life Steelers 20-9.
So trying to cut a good deal to see if somebody wants to go with that. If so, you can. Honestly, the best thing to do is probably reach out to Dave, and Dave will get you with me.
Yep, and I also have a friend that has a good price on the Christmas Day game, but Rich is really the one that's a steal for that game.
It's a steal for that game. So, hey, look, 3-0. Who would have thought? I didn't think the Steelers would get out the gate this quick. I really didn't.
No.
So it's been a good start. Have there been some, to quote Brian Anthony Davis, has there been some pimples? Yes, there have been some pimples. It hasn't always been the prettiest. But what I like so far is that it's been improving in some way every week. Okay. Real quick. Jay Hanna, Steelers 24-10. Najee runs one in. So, kind of like we said earlier, we're the Steelers trending the right way with some stuff here. And that's a big thing to me. If they can continue trending the right way, they get a win in this game. And I think it is. I think it is just really that simple. If the offense continues to make some improvements and not slide backwards, the defense continues to clean things up, not slide backwards. The Steelers escape Indianapolis with a win, and the Steelers start the season 4-0. I'm going to be sitting there watching it, as I guess Daniel Red is at 26-6 Steelers. Okay. I'm going to be sitting there on my couch at 1:00 when God intended football to be played, watching the Steelers, in Indianapolis, and I'm just really hoping to see continued improvement, trending the right direction, and bring home another Steelers victory.
Pedal down.
Can't wait.
You gotta just chill out, man.
Can't wait.